The emergency signal flashed red across every screen in the Galactic Council chambers. Emergency session. All members required. No exceptions. Ambassador Cowleth of the Zephyrians hurried through the corridors of Harmony's Edge, the massive space station that served as the galaxy's political center. He had seen emergency sessions before, but never one called with such urgency. The message had been simple. Velkari Empire has broken all treaties. Immediate response required. Dr. Park Mina sat in the human observation section, watching as representatives from hundreds of species filled the Great Chamber. As Earth's chief scientist and council liaison, she had the right to observe, but not to vote. Humans had lost their voting rights 3 centuries ago, after what the galaxy called the Terra Incident. The chamber fell silent as Supreme Chancellor. Veltok took his place at the center podium. The ancient being's multiple eyes scanned the assembled representatives before he spoke. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," his voice boomed through the translation systems, "we face our greatest crisis in 300 years. The Velkari Empire has declared war on all free worlds. They have already attacked 17 colonies in the Outer Rim. Millions are dead." A wave of shocked whispers ran through the chamber. The Velkari were known to be aggressive, but they had always respected the ancient treaties. They were crystal-based life forms, incredibly tough and difficult to kill. Their ships were fast and their weapons were deadly. "What do they want?" called out the representative from the Andromedan Trade Union. "Everything," Chancellor Veltok replied grimly. "Complete surrender of all non-Velkari species. They believe only they deserve to rule the galaxy." Park Mina felt her stomach drop. She thought immediately of the human colonies scattered across dozens of worlds. Most of them were farming communities, places where humans grew food for the galaxy's trade networks. They had no defenses, no weapons, no way to protect themselves. On Earth, Lieutenant Commander Lee Hyun received the emergency transmission in his office at Fleet Command. The message was brief but terrifying. "All human colonies under attack. Velkari forces advancing on multiple fronts. Request immediate military assistance." Lee Hyun stared at the message, his hands shaking slightly. He was young for his rank, only 32 years old. He had trained his entire life to defend human space, but he had never imagined he would face a real war. No human alive had fought in a real war. That was the point of the Prohibition. He walked quickly to Admiral Songdae's office, the message clutched in his hand. Songdae was an old man, gray-haired and wise, but even he had never seen combat. Peace had been humanity's gift to the galaxy. "For 300 years, Admiral," Lee Hyun said, bursting through the door without knocking. "We have a situation." Songdae read the message twice before setting it down carefully on his desk. His face was calm, but Lee Hyun could see the worry in his eyes. "Send a message to all human fleet commanders," Songdae said slowly. "Emergency deployment to protect our colonies." "Sir," Lee Hyun said carefully. "The Prohibition?" Songdae looked at him with tired eyes. "The Prohibition forbids us from participating in galactic wars. It does not forbid us from defending our own people." Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the debate was growing heated. Species after species stood to demand action against the Velkari threat. Some wanted immediate military response. Others called for economic sanctions. A few suggested trying to negotiate. "What about the humans?" called out Ambassador Cowleth. "Their colonies are under attack. Surely they have the right to defend themselves." The chamber fell silent. Every being there knew about the Prohibition. Every being there remembered why it existed. Chancellor Veltok's multiple eyes focused on the Zephyrian ambassador. "The Treaty of Arcturus is very clear. Humans are prohibited from all military action in galactic space. This includes defensive operations." "But their people are dying," Cowleth protested. "The Prohibition exists for good reason," replied the Centauri representative, her voice cold. We all remember what happened the last time humans were allowed to wage war. Park Mina stood up in the observation section. May I speak? Humans may observe but not participate in council debates, Chancellor Veltok said firmly. Then let me make a simple statement, Park Mina said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Human colonies are under attack. Our people are dying. We ask only for the right to protect our own families. The prohibition stands, declared the Andromedan representative. It was written in the blood of billions. It will not be lifted. The vote was swift and decisive. 847 species voted to maintain the prohibition. Only 3 voted to allow humans to defend themselves. The human observers were not allowed to vote at all. Park Mina felt tears running down her face as she watched the vote tally appear on the screens. The galaxy had just decided that human lives were not worth the risk of setting humanity free. On the agricultural world of Kepler 442b, Kim J was working in his fields when the sky began to burn. Crystal ships descended from orbit like falling stars, their hulls reflecting the sunlight in painful flashes. Kim J ran toward his house where his wife Cho Yuna was preparing lunch for their 2 children. 8-year-old Minho was playing in the garden while baby So Young slept in her crib. Yuna! Kim J shouted as he burst through the door. We need to get to the shelter! Before Yuna could respond, the house exploded around them. Crystal spears, launched from the ships above, tore through the roof and walls like they were made of paper. Kim J threw himself over his family, trying to shield them with his body. The pain was incredible. Crystal shards cut through his back and arms. He could hear Yuna screaming, could hear Minho crying. But baby So Young had gone silent. With his last strength, Kim J activated his emergency transmitter. The device was supposed to call for help from Earth's defense fleet, but Kim J knew no help would come. The galaxy had forbidden it. This is Kim J on Kepler 442b. He gasped into the transmitter. Colony under attack. All civilians dead or dying. No resistance possible. He looked at his wife's still face, at his son's broken body, at his daughter who would never grow up. The crystal ships continued their attack, methodically destroying everything human on the planet. Please, Kim J whispered into the transmitter as his vision began to fade. Please remember who you used to be. The transmission reached Earth 6 hours later. By then, Kim J and his family were gone, along with every other human on Kepler 442b. The Velkari had been thorough in their work. Lieutenant Commander Lee Hyun stood in the communications center, listening to Kim J's final message over and over again. Around him, other officers received similar reports from human colonies across the galaxy. The same story, repeated dozens of times. Attack, slaughter, silence. Sir, one of the communication officers said quietly, we're getting requests for help from 37 colonies. All under attack, all requesting immediate assistance. Lee Hyun looked at the tactical display. Red dots marked every human settlement in the galaxy. More than half of them were already dark, their signals gone forever. What are our orders? The officer asked. Lee Hyun thought about the prohibition. He thought about the Treaty of Arcturus. He thought about the vote in the Galactic Council that had condemned his people to death. Stand by, he said finally. Wait for orders from Admiral Song Dae. But deep in his heart, Lee Hyun knew what those orders would be. They would be told to watch, to observe, to record the death of every human colony in the galaxy, while the great powers debated and the prohibition held them back. On Harmony's edge, Dr. Park Mina sat alone in her quarters, watching the news reports. The galaxy's media was already spinning. The story. Tragic losses in the outer rim. Diplomatic solutions still possible. Prohibition prevents escalation. No one mentioned that an entire human world had been sterilized. No one talked about families like Kim J's, wiped out while the galaxy voted to keep their protectors chained. Parkmina opened her communication device and began typing a message to Earth. It was a simple message, but it would change everything. The galaxy has chosen. They value their fear of us more than our lives. Perhaps it is time they remembered why they were afraid. The message was sent on an encrypted channel that only Earth's highest military leaders could access. It would reach Admiral Song Day within the hour. And on Earth, in the deep bunkers where humanity's most terrible secrets lay sleeping, ancient machines would begin to stir. Weapons that had been hidden away for 3 centuries would start their power-up sequences. The Prohibition had held for 300 years. It had kept the galaxy safe from humanity's worst instincts. It had prevented another Terra incident. But it had also forgotten a simple truth. The Prohibition only worked as long as humans chose to honor it. And choice, as the galaxy was about to learn, was something that could be taken away. Admiral Song Day sat in his dark office, staring at the emergency message that had just arrived from Kepler 442b. The words on the screen seemed to burn into his eyes. Colony lost, all civilians dead, no survivors. He read it 3 times before. The truth sank in. Kim Jae and his family were gone. So were 10,000 other humans who had done nothing wrong except live too far from Earth. Song Day was an old man now, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had served in Earth's Navy for 40 years, but he had never seen real war. No human alive had seen real war. That was the point of the Prohibition. That was why the galaxy had made sure humans stayed away from battlefields. He walked to his wall safe and entered a code he had memorized but never used. Inside were files marked with red letters. Classified, Terra Incident, Eyes Only. Song Day had read these files once, 20 years ago, when he became Admiral. They had given him nightmares for months. The first file showed pictures of what used to be the Arcturus system. 3 planets that had once held billions of lives were now just rocks floating in space. The official report said it was a technical malfunction. The real reports told a different story. They told the story of what humans could do when they stopped holding back. Song Day opened his communication device and sent a message to Captain Yoon Hana. "Come to my office. Bring no one. Tell no one where you are going." Captain Yoon Hana was young for a ship commander, only 35 years old. She had grown up hearing stories about the old days, when humans fought in the galaxy's wars, but those were just stories to her. Ancient history. She commanded the stealth ship Silent, Thunder, one of Earth's most advanced vessels, but it had never fired a shot in anger. When she arrived at Song Day's office, she found him holding an old paper book. Real paper was rare these days. Most things were digital, but this book looked like it had been read many times. "This belonged to your grandfather," Song Day said, handing her the book. "Yoon Tai-ho. He was my mentor during the last war." Hana took the book with shaking hands. She had never known much about her grandfather. Her family said he died when she was very young. They said he was sick. They never talked about the war. The book was a journal, written in her grandfather's neat handwriting. The first entry was dated 315 years ago. The last entry was just 3 words. "We became monsters." Hana read the entries slowly. Her grandfather wrote about battles in space, about planets that fought back, about enemies that would not surrender. He wrote about orders that came from Earth's government. Do whatever it takes to win. In one entry, her grandfather described a battle above a world called Haven. The aliens there had taken human prisoners and were using them as shields. The alien commander thought this would make the humans hesitate. He was wrong. "We broke their shields with the prisoners still inside," her grandfather had written. "We told ourselves it was mercy, that dying quickly was better than dying slowly in alien camps. But we knew the truth. We did it because we could. Because making the enemy watch their shields fail was worth more than saving a few human lives." Hana felt sick reading these words. This could not be her grandfather. The man her family remembered was kind and gentle. He grew flowers in his garden and told funny stories to children. "Keep reading," Songdae said quietly. The journal entries got worse. Her grandfather wrote about human soldiers who stopped taking prisoners, about human ships that hunted down enemy vessels even after they surrendered, about human commanders who destroyed entire cities to send messages to other worlds. The worst entry was about something called the Night of Glass. Her grandfather's unit had captured an alien world that had been using humans for experiments. Instead of just freeing the human prisoners, they had done something else, something that made the entire alien species surrender 3 days later. "We lined up every alien on the planet," the journal said. "Military and civilian, adult and child. We did not hurt them. We just made them watch while we destroyed everything they had ever built. Every city, every monument, every piece of art. We erased their culture in 6 hours. Then we left them alive on their empty world to remember what they had lost." Hana closed the journal. Her hands were shaking. "Why are you showing me this?" Songdae walked to his window and looked out at Earth's blue oceans. "Because the Galactic Council just voted to keep the prohibition in place, even after what happened at Kepler, even though more colonies are under attack right now." "But that's good, isn't it?" Hana asked. "After reading this, maybe we should stay away from war." Songdae turned back to her. His eyes were sad but determined. "President Kang Soo-jin just called me. She's activating Protocol 7. Hana had never heard of Protocol 7, but something about the way Songdae said it made her stomach drop. "What's Protocol 7? "It's the plan we made after the Prohibition," Songdae explained. "Just in case the galaxy ever forced our hand again. Just in case they ever made us choose between watching our people die and becoming what we used to be." Songdae pressed a button on his desk. Somewhere far below them, in bunkers built deep under Earth's surface, machines that had been sleeping for 3 centuries began to wake up. Weapons that the galaxy had forgotten about started warming up. Ships that had been hidden away began running system checks. "Send a message to all human ships," Songdae ordered. "Emergency recall. All vessels return to Earth immediately." "Sir, what about the colonies that are still under attack?" Songdae looked at her with eyes that seemed much older than his years. "We're going to save them. But first, we need to remember how to be what we used to be. We need to remember why the galaxy was so afraid of us that they made us promise never to fight again." Hana left Songdae's office carrying her grandfather's journal. As she walked back to her ship, she saw other captains and commanders moving with new purpose. Everyone had gotten the same message. Everyone knew what was coming. In the distance, she could see the orbital elevators that connected Earth to its space stations. Emergency lights were flashing on all of them. For the first time in 300 years, Earth was preparing for war. The last entry in her grandfather's journal kept repeating in her mind, "We became monsters." But as she thought about Kim Jae and his family, as she thought about all the humans who had died while Earth watched helplessly, she wondered if becoming monsters again might be exactly what the galaxy needed. After all, sometimes monsters were the only thing that could stop other monsters. And the galaxy was about to remember that humans had always been very good at being monsters when they needed to be. The first sign that something had changed came from the Proxima Centauri system. The Velkari siege fleet had been there for weeks, slowly crushing the human colony's defenses. 1,000 crystal ships surrounded the planet like a deadly net. The colonists sent desperate messages every day, begging for help that never came. Then, in the space of 1 hour, the siege fleet disappeared. Commander Bei Min stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the empty space where enemy ships had been just moments before. His crew worked in perfect silence, their movements quick and precise. No one spoke unless they had to. No one made jokes or small talk. They had work to do. "Any survivors?" Bei Min asked his sensor officer. "Negative, sir. Complete elimination," Bay. Min nodded. That was the point. The Velkari were not supposed to survive. They were supposed to disappear so completely that other enemy fleets would start to wonder if they had ever existed at all. The communication officer looked up from his station. "Sir, we're getting a call from the Zephyrian ship Brightwing. Captain Veltar wants to talk." "Put him through." The alien captain's face appeared on the main screen. Veltar was a tall, thin creature with blue skin and large black eyes. He had worked with human ships before the Prohibition. Back then, he had considered humans to be reliable allies, predictable, safe. "Commander Bay Min," Veltar said carefully, "we monitored your engagement with the Velkari fleet. We must ask, what happened to the enemy survivors?" Bay Min looked at the alien captain with calm, empty eyes. "What survivors?" "The ships that surrendered, the crews that ejected in escape pods. Standard military protocol requires—" "Captain Veltar," Bay Min interrupted, his voice as cold as space itself. "That was before you let our people die while we watched." The alien captain's face went pale blue. He had heard stories about what humans used to be like in the old wars. Stories that he had always believed were exaggerated. Propaganda meant to make enemies afraid. But looking at Bay Min's face, he realized the stories might not have been exaggerated enough. "Commander, surely. You don't mean to—" The transmission cut off. Bay Min had ended the call. "Set course for the next system," he ordered. "The Velkari have 3 more fleets between here and their home worlds. Let's go introduce ourselves." On the jungle world of Verdania, Sergeant Osung led his squad through the thick green forest. They moved like ghosts, making no sound as they tracked the Velkari ground forces. The enemy had taken the planet's main city 3 days ago. They had killed every human they could find and enslaved the rest. Osung's squad was small, only 12 soldiers. The Velkari had over 1,000 troops in the city, but numbers did not matter anymore. Humans had remembered something the galaxy had tried very hard to forget. "Target acquired," whispered Private Lee Daw through the comm system. She was their sniper, hidden in a tree half a kilometer away. "Crystal Patrol, 6 units, moving down Market Street." "Take them," Osung ordered. 6 precise shots rang out in quick succession. 6 Velkari soldiers dropped to the ground, their crystal bodies shattered. The shots came so fast that the aliens did not even have time to raise an alarm. "Move to the next position," Osung said. His squad flowed through the jungle like water, silent and deadly. They had been hunting Velkari for 6 hours. In that time, they had killed 47 enemy soldiers. The aliens knew they were being hunted, but they could not find the humans. They could not even figure out how many humans were hunting them. This is not how humans used to fight. 1. Velkari commander had transmitted to his ship in orbit. "They used to charge straight at us. They used to announce themselves with loud battle cries. These ones are different." Osung heard the transmission through his team's communication intercept system. He smiled. The galaxy remembered humans as brave and honorable warriors who fought fair fights. That was true in a way. Humans had been those things when they chose to be, but humans had also been hunters for millions of years before they became warriors. And when they stopped being warriors, they remembered how to be hunters again. In the space above Saturn, Captain Kim Woo piloted his fighter through the planet's rings. The Banshee was unlike any ship the galaxy had seen before. It could change direction in ways that should have killed its pilot. It could accelerate at speeds that should have torn it apart. It could appear and disappear like a ghost. Kim Woo was hunting Velkari scouts. 3 enemy ships had been sent to spy on Earth's defenses. They thought they were being clever, hiding in the rings where their crystal hulls would blend in with the ice. They were wrong. Kim Woo's ship slid between 2 massive ice chunks, moving so smoothly it seemed like he was dancing. His targeting. Computer did not just track the enemy ships. It predicted where they would go, what they would do, how they would try to escape. The first Velkari scout never saw him coming. One moment it was scanning for human ships, the next moment it was expanding debris, scattered across 50 kilometers of ring material. The second scout tried to run. It fired its engines at full power and dove towards Saturn's atmosphere. Kim Woo followed it down, his ship moving like a bird of prey. The enemy pilot was good, but humans had been flying for 3 centuries. More importantly, humans had been hunting for millions of years. The Valkyrie ship exploded just above Saturn's cloud layer. Kim Woo pulled out of his dive and went looking for the third scout. He found it trying to hide behind one of Saturn's moons. The alien pilot was broadcasting surrender signals in every language he knew. He was begging for mercy in words that no human had heard for 300 years. Kim Woo circled the enemy ship like a shark, circling wounded prey. He could have destroyed it in seconds. Instead, he did something worse. He marked it. Using his ship's laser system, he burned human symbols into the Valkyrie ship's hull. Symbols that would not come off. Symbols that would tell everyone who saw this ship exactly what had happened to it. Then, he let it go. The Valkyrie scout limped away toward its home fleet, carrying a message burned into its very structure. Humans were back. And they were very, very angry. Back on Earth, Dr. Lim Jun stood in the deep bunker where humanity's most terrible weapons had been sleeping. The old scientist's hands shook as he watched ancient machines come back to life. These weapons had been built during the last war, then sealed away when the Prohibition began. Now they were waking up. "Status report," he asked the bunker's computer system. "All systems operational," the computer replied in a calm, pleasant voice. "Planet killer missiles, ready. Reality distortion bombs, armed. Quantum plague generators, active. Shall I begin target acquisition?" Dr. Lim Jun closed his eyes. He had helped design these weapons when he was young. He had thought they would never be used again. He had hoped they would never be used again. "Not yet," he said. "But begin preparations. And send a message to all Valkyrie frequencies." What should the message say? Dr. Lim Jun thought about Kim Jae and his family. He thought about all the humans who had died while Earth was forced to watch. He thought about the galaxy that had decided human lives were not worth saving. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that humanity is no longer bound by the Treaty of Arcturus. Tell them we are coming, and tell them that we remember everything." The message went out across the galaxy on every frequency, in every language. It was simple and short, but it made entire worlds go quiet with fear. Because the galaxy did remember what humans used to be like. They remembered the Night of Glass. They remembered the Arcturus incident. They remembered why they had been so eager to make humans promise never to fight again. Now that promise was broken. And 300 years of sleep had not made humans any less dangerous. If anything, it had made them worse. The Valkyrie High Command had chosen New Babylon for their final stand. The massive trade station was the heart of galactic commerce, with millions of aliens from dozens of species living and working there. It was also surrounded by the largest Valkyrie fleet ever assembled. 3,000 crystal ships arranged in perfect defensive formations. Crystallarch Velmor believed the humans would never attack such a heavily defended target. Even if they did, surely they would not risk harming so many innocent aliens. The old humans had always cared about protecting civilians. That was one of the things that made them weak. He was about to learn that the old humans were gone. Admiral Songdae stood on the bridge of Terra's Wrath, studying the enemy fleet through the main display. His ship was old, built during the last war and hidden away when the Prohibition began. Its hull was scarred with marks from battles fought centuries ago. But it had been upgraded with technology the galaxy had never seen. Behind Terra's Wrath came 11 more ships. Each one was unique, built for a specific purpose. Each one carried weapons that should not have existed. Together, they were everything the galaxy had feared humans might become. Admiral, reported Captain Yoon Hana from the Silent Thunder. We have civilian evacuation requests from over 40 different species on the station. They're asking for safe passage. Songdae looked at the tactical display. 3,000 enemy ships. Millions of civilians. Any normal fleet would spend weeks planning an attack that might still fail. But these were not normal ships, and this was not a normal fleet. Open a channel to the Velkari commander, Songdae ordered. Crystallark Velmore's image appeared on the screen. He was tall and angular, his crystal skin reflecting the lights of his command bridge. His voice rang like breaking glass when he spoke. Human Admiral, you are badly outnumbered. Surrender now and we will consider allowing your species to exist as our slaves. Songdae looked at the alien commander with eyes that had seen 3 centuries of peace and 6 hours of war. Crystallark Velmore, you have 30 seconds to withdraw your fleet and release all human prisoners. This is your only warning. The Velkari leader's crystal face twisted into what might have been laughter. 30 seconds? You have 12 ships against 3,000. What could you possibly do in 30 seconds? Songdae smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. You're about to find out. The channel closed. Songdae turned to his crew. Begin the demonstration. Captain Yoon Hana moved first. The Silent Thunder simply vanished from all sensors, then reappeared inside the enemy formation. The Velkari ships tried to target her, but she was already gone, phasing in and out of normal space like a ghost. Every time she appeared, another enemy ship exploded. Lieutenant Commander Lee Hyun coordinated the attack from his ship, the Voidwalker. His tactical computer was linked directly to his brain, allowing him to process information faster than any organic mind should be able to. He saw every enemy ship, predicted every movement, calculated every weakness. Pattern Alpha, he transmitted to the fleet. The other human ships moved in perfect coordination, each one attacking at exactly the right moment in exactly the right place. Captain Kim Woo dove through the enemy formation in his fighter, the Banshee screaming between crystal ships like a missile. But he was not trying to destroy them. He was marking them, using his laser to burn symbols into their hulls. Every ship he marked exploded exactly 3 seconds later, destroyed by weapons fired from ships they could not even see. The Velkari tried to adapt, tried to predict the human movements, but the humans were not following any tactical doctrine the galaxy understood. They moved like they could see the future, like they knew what every enemy ship would do before it did it. Commander Bei Min brought his ship, the Retribution, directly at the largest group of enemy vessels. The Velkari concentrated their fire on him, thinking one ship could not survive such an assault. They were wrong. The Retribution's shields bent space itself, making enemy shots miss by inches. And when Bei Min fired back, his weapons did not just destroy ships, they erased them so completely that not even atoms remained. This is impossible, Crystallark Velmore transmitted on all frequencies. How are they doing this? How can 12 ships defeat 3,000? Songdae answered from the Terra's wrath. Because we stopped holding back. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, the Velkari fleet was gone. Not destroyed, gone. Erased from existence as if it had never been. The only survivors were the ships Songdae had deliberately allowed to escape, their hulls marked with human symbols that would never fade. On New Babylon Station, millions of aliens watched the battle through observation ports and sensor displays. They saw 12 human ships erase 3,000 enemy vessels without taking a single hit. They saw weapons that broke the laws of physics and tactics that should not have worked. Most importantly, they remembered why the galaxy had been so afraid of humans that they had banned them from warfare for 3 centuries. Dr. Park Mina sat in her office on Earth, monitoring communications from across the galaxy. In the 6 hours since the battle at New Babylon, 17 different Velkari territories had offered to surrender. 23 alien species had asked to join humanity's side. 41 pirate fleets had announced they were retiring from crime. But the humans were not interested in surrender anymore. They had tasted war again, and they remembered why they had been good at it. "Status report from Admiral Songday," her assistant announced. Park Mina read the message with growing alarm. The human fleet was not returning to Earth. They were moving deeper into Velkari space, hunting down every crystal ship they could find. They were not taking prisoners. They were not accepting surrenders. They were sending a message to the entire galaxy. This is what happens when you let humans die while forcing us to watch. On the research station Deep Thought, Dr. Lim Jun monitored the awakening happening across human space. It was not just the military that was changing. Humans everywhere were remembering what they used to be. Crime on Earth had dropped to 0 overnight, not because people had become more peaceful, but because something primal had awakened in the human species. Children played war games with a sophistication that frightened their teachers. Adults spoke of duty and honor with voices that carried undertones of barely controlled violence. "Sir," one of his technicians reported, "we're getting strange readings from the population centers. Brain scan data shows humans are thinking differently than they did a week ago." Dr. Lim Jun studied the data. Human brain patterns were changing, becoming more focused, more predatory. It was as if 3 centuries of peace had been a thin layer of ice over a deep, dark ocean. Now the ice was cracking, and things were rising from the depths. "Are we becoming what we used to be?" the technician asked. Dr. Lim Jun thought about the battle reports, about the Velkari fleets disappearing without a trace, about the growing fear in alien communications across the galaxy. "No," he said quietly. "We're becoming something worse. We're becoming what we would have been if we'd never stopped." In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency meetings were being held around the clock. Species that had once voted to keep the prohibition in place were now begging for protection from the humans they had forbidden to fight. Ambassador Kuleth of the Zephyrians stood before the council, his blue skin pale with fear. "We must negotiate with them. We must offer them something to make them stop." "Stop what?" asked the Andromedan representative. "They're only attacking the Velkari. Surely that's what we wanted." "No," Kuleth said, his voice shaking. "You don't understand. They're not just fighting the Velkari. They're sending a message to all of us. They're showing us what they could do to any of us if we ever made the same mistake again." The council chamber fell silent. Every species there had voted to maintain the prohibition. Every species there had agreed to let humans die rather than risk setting them free. Now they were all wondering if they had made the right choice, because the humans had proven something terrifying. The prohibition had never been about protecting the galaxy from human aggression. It had been about protecting the galaxy from human efficiency. And efficiency, once awakened, was very hard to put back to sleep. 6 months after the battle at New Babylon, the galaxy had become a very different place. The Velkari Empire existed only in history books now. Their crystal cities sat empty on dozens of worlds, their people scattered across the outer rim as refugees. They were not dead. The humans had been very careful about that. Death would have been mercy. Instead, the Velkari had been broken in ways that would take generations to heal. Their military was gone. Their government was gone. Their confidence was gone. They lived now only because the humans allowed them to live, and they would never forget that fact. President Kang Soo-jin stood on the bridge of Terra's shield, the massive orbital fortress that now hung above Earth like a watchful eye. Through the viewport, she could see ships from a dozen different species coming and going in perfect order. Trade flowed smoothly. Communications were polite and respectful. Everyone followed the rules. It was the most peaceful the galaxy had been in centuries. It was also the most terrified it had ever been. "Madam President," her aide announced, "the Galactic Council is ready for your address." Kang Soo-jin nodded and walked to the communication chamber. The Reformed Council waited for her on the main screen, representatives from 47 species, all of them trying very hard to look calm and confident. Most of them were failing. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice warm and diplomatic, "humanity is honored to accept your invitation to resume our place in galactic affairs." The words were reasonable. The tone was friendly, but every alien in the chamber could hear the unspoken message underneath. "You invited us back because you're afraid of what we might do if you didn't." "We trust," Kang Soo-jin continued with a smile that never reached her eyes, "that there will be no future misunderstandings about our capabilities." Ambassador Kleth of the Zephyrians shifted nervously in his seat. He had been the one to cast the deciding vote 6 months ago, the vote that had kept the prohibition in place while human colonies burned. Now he lived every day wondering if the humans remembered that vote as clearly as he did. "Of course, Madam President," he said carefully. "We welcome humanity's return to full galactic citizenship. We hope we can work together for the good of all species." Kang Soo-jin's smile grew slightly wider. "I'm sure we can. After all, we all want the same thing: peace, prosperity, and the safety of our people. Don't we?" The question hung in the air, like a blade. Every council member knew that the humans now defined safety of our people very differently than they used to. The old humans had been willing to let their own people die to avoid harming others. The new humans had made it very clear that nothing, absolutely nothing, was more important than human lives. Captain Kim Woo now commanded the human peacekeeping force, a fleet of ships that ensured galactic stability through a very simple principle. Any conflict that could not be resolved through negotiation would be resolved through human intervention. The fleet was small, only 100 ships, but it was the most feared military force in the galaxy. Pirates had stopped operating entirely. Not because they had been hunted down and destroyed, but because Kim Woo had visited their leaders personally. The conversations had been brief and very polite. No threats had been made. No violence had occurred. But somehow, every pirate captain who met with Kim Woo decided that retirement was the best option for their health and the health of their crews. "Status report," Kim Woo said to his bridge crew as his ship, the Peacekeeper, patrolled the trade routes near Rigel. "All quiet, sir," his tactical officer reported. 3 cargo convoys passed through in the last hour. No incidents, no delays. No requests for assistance. Kim Woo nodded. That was how things worked now. Ships moved where they needed to go. Trade happened smoothly. Disputes were settled quickly and fairly. It was the most efficient the galaxy had ever been. Of course, efficiency came at a price. But the galaxy seemed willing to pay that price, especially when the alternative was finding out what the humans might do if their patience was tested again. Commander Bei Min had returned to Earth, but he carried the weight of what he had done in the war. He stood now before the memorial wall where Kim Jae's name was etched alongside thousands of other colonists who had died while humanity was forced to watch. "We remembered," he whispered to the stone. "We remembered why they were afraid." Other humans came to the memorial every day, veterans of the 6-month war that had reshaped the galaxy. They came to remember the people they had fought for and the things they had done in their names. None of them talked about the details. The official reports were classified, marked with security levels that would keep them sealed for centuries. But sometimes, late at night in quiet bars, a veteran might mention something small. A tactical maneuver that should not have worked, a weapon that had done impossible things, an enemy ship that had simply stopped existing. The galaxy tried not to listen to these stories, but they heard them anyway, and they remembered. Dr. Park Mina sat in her new office in the Ministry of Galactic Relations, writing her daily report. Her title was Ambassador for Human Affairs, but everyone knew what she really was. The person who explained to the galaxy what humans wanted and what might happen if they didn't get it. It was a job that required delicate balance. Too soft and other species might forget why they needed to be careful around humans. Too hard, and they might decide that fighting humans was better than living in fear of them. Today's incident log, she dictated to her computer. The Andromedan trade union attempted to impose new tariffs on human goods. After a brief conversation with Captain Kim Woo, they decided to reconsider. The Centauri Mining Consortium reported a labor dispute on their asteroid facilities. Human mediators resolved the issue in 3 hours. The resolution was satisfactory to all parties. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. No use of force was required in any incident today. All disputes were resolved through diplomatic means. The last sentence was technically true. It was diplomatic to send a single human ship to orbit above a planet until the people on that planet decided to be reasonable. It was diplomatic to hold conversations with alien leaders about the benefits of cooperation. It was diplomatic to avoid mentioning what might happen if cooperation was not forthcoming. Dr. Park Mina had learned that the most effective diplomacy was the kind that never had to be spoken aloud. On the research station Deep Thought, Dr. Lim Jun monitored the changes that continued to spread through human society. 6 months after the awakening, the transformation was still ongoing. Humans were becoming something new, something that had never existed before in galactic history. They were a species that had learned to be peaceful, then remembered how to be predators, then chosen to be both at the same time. "Sir," his assistant reported, "we're getting reports from human colonies across the galaxy. Crime rates remain at 0. Productivity is up 40%. Educational scores have improved dramatically." Dr. Lim Jun studied the data. Humans were thriving in ways they never had before. They were more focused, more efficient, more united, but they were also more dangerous than they had ever been. "Are we better than we were?" his assistant asked. Dr. Lim Jun thought about the question for a long time. "We're what we needed to become," he said finally. The galaxy forgot that peace is not the absence of violence. Peace is the presence of justice. And sometimes, justice requires the threat of violence to be meaningful. In her private quarters, Dr. Park Mina wrote in her personal journal, recording thoughts that would never appear in any official report. "We are not the same species we were 6 months ago. The Prohibition changed us, but not in the way the galaxy intended. They thought they were taming us, making us safe. Instead, they taught us patience. They taught us restraint. They taught us to choose our battles carefully. Now we are the sword that chooses not to fall. We are the storm that decides when to break. We are the predators who have learned to hunt with their minds instead of their claws." The galaxy wanted to see what we could become when we chose mercy. They got their answer, but they also learned what we were like when mercy was taken from us. We are not conquerors. We are not destroyers. We are gardeners, and this galaxy is our garden. We will tend it carefully, protect it fiercely, and prune away anything that threatens the peace we have built. The prohibition is lifted. It will never be imposed again. Not because the galaxy has accepted our right to fight, but because they have learned that there are far worse things than human soldiers at war. There is nothing more dangerous than human soldiers at peace who remember what war taught them. Admiral Song Day stood on the observation deck of Terra Station, watching the ships of dozens of species dock peacefully. Behind him, the sealed archives remained closed, their secrets safe. The galaxy had learned its lesson about prohibiting humanity from the battlefield. They had learned that the prohibition was never about protecting others from human aggression. It was about protecting others from human justice. And justice, once awakened, was very patient, very thorough, and very, very permanent. The new order had begun, and it would last as long as humans remembered what they had learned when they were forced to watch their people die, while the galaxy voted to keep them helpless, which was to say, it would last forever.